Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new Delta X podcast with Ellen Shue. These are conversations with changemakers, innovators, and self-starters who have made their mark on the world at a young age, breaking down the journeys of those who are changing the status quo and building the future today. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
And welcome back to Delta X Podcast. I'm your host, Ellen Shue, and today we're kind of going to do a recap of the century type theme, except with three class of 2022 graduating seniors on kind of their experience from high school, what they're looking forward to, some General Fireside chat type content. Welcome Sneha, Aaryan, and Kyler.
Hey everyone, my name is Kyler. I'm from Portland, Oregon. And beyond school, I run an organization called Spark Teen. We support teen entrepreneurs as they build their companies. I also lead an organization called Mission Citizen, where we help local immigrants become U.S. citizens. And as part of that, I get to run a coffee brand where we sell coffee, raise money to cover citizenship fees. And then beyond that, I'm also interested in history. In high school, I did a bunch of research activities. And yeah, super excited to be on here, Ellen.
Yeah, I can go next. So my name is Sneha and I'm from San Jose, California. I'm also a senior, as we probably already know. So outside of school, I run an organization called Encode Justice, and Encode Justice is mainly focused on AI ethics. And so we initially started off on a pretty small scale, but have expanded immensely since our founding, which has been super exciting and gratifying to see. But yeah, I am super interested in tech policy and AI governance more broadly. And I definitely do hope to continue pursuing that in the future. So that's a bit about me.
My name is Aaryan. I'm from Fremont, California, which is like 30 minutes north of San Jose. So in the Bay, it's a little big town. Outside of school, I run an organization called Unitopia, which is dedicated to promoting inclusion in special education programs and for neurodivergent students, especially. We do things like, one-on-one activities, caregiver training guides and things like that, especially internationally, where there's a lot of under-resourced schools and institutions. Beyond that, I do a lot of neuroscience research, and I'm probably on the pre-med track during college. So that's kind of my major focus. I've done quite a bit of research in a lot of different domains over the course of high school. So yeah, I'm also pretty excited to be here.
Yeah, that's cool. And also Kyler, I feel like we should talk more about your coffee obsession, because that you talked a lot about that, and Mission Citizen and selling coffee. So I feel like it'd be cool to talk about, kind of how that relates to your whole philosophy behind experience. And also we can talk about Sneha and Aaryan. I'm sure you guys have also those hyper focused moments in high school where you had just random obsessions and just went far with that.
Yeah. So the thing is, this is a full confession here. I don't actually drink coffee. I don't actually really like coffee, except last year. So last year I took the reins of an organization called Mission Citizen. And so normally we run citizenship classes for local immigrants, but then also we had just started a coffee brand called Mission Citizen Coffee. We were selling in one local grocery store, but that was it. And at first, that wasn't really part of my main job, but then I got this weird obsession over the summer. A couple of us on the team, we became obsessed with selling this coffee. So first, we started going to in-person events a lot more. We started trying to start up a subscription service, trying to get into more retail stores. And so probably August through November, I spent just a significant portion of my time working every single day on this coffee brand for no reason besides it was fun to do. And it was probably an unproductive thing to do, to be honest, but tying into that overall life philosophy of collecting experiences, I feel like the most memorable moments of high school for me were locking in on these weird obsessions. So freshman year, did speech and debate. I remember working till late. Aaryan is definitely a lot more legit of a speech and debater than I am, but working till late with my partners on these cases, and then working on the Spark Teen market. And so definitely when I think back, my high school experience as a whole, there wasn't that much consistency to it, but it was always locked in on specific projects, short bursts of intense obsession. and then moving on to another interest or curiosity.
Kyler, have you read that Paul Graham, like that one essay about the bus ticket hypothesis or like the bus ticket theory?
I didn't read it. I remember you summarized it to me. Like
yeah, that reminds me a lot about what he said, because it's like bus ticket collectors. It's like something like bus ticket collectors just have this random obsession over things that other people don't understand, like why bus tickets. But then, like that's like he claims that that's what like distinguishes, I guess, successful people versus non-successful. Just like you have very targeted obsessions over things that other people don't understand but are meaningful in some way in the broader scheme. I thought that was interesting with what you said about coffee. Yeah, Aaryan, what about you? Like, did you ever have that like obsessive moment? I know you did speech and debate too.
Yeah, so I guess I can start off by saying I am obsessed with coffee. Like for real. I think Kyler saw me in Atlanta. I was drinking probably 2 to 3 cups of coffee, just whenever possible. But I think for me, it's kind of similar, like just like the obsessions. I think I had like a collective list of activities that I was doing since freshman year. But I think that during like over the course of high school, I think over the 4 years, there were just different periods where you would just focus on certain things more often than not. And I think some people approach activities with like a certain like hours per week expectation. Like, oh, I'm going to dedicate 5 hours per week for like, I don't know, speech and debate, and then 20 hours for Unitopia. And I think coming into high school, I always thought that. But then I realized like, I really don't care about those like scales. And I think they're really relative in that regard. So there were weeks where I would spend like 40 hours a week, skip 2 days of school. Highly recommend, by the way. If you actually want to be productive, skip a lot of school. Obviously don't like bawl your parents about it, but like it's a genuine way to be productive. Just having like whatever kind of makes you happy, whatever you kind of makes you feel gratified is what I kind of learned over the course of 4 years for sure.
Yeah, so Aaryan is definitely chronically truant, which is maybe not the move, but I definitely do agree. And I think that like missing school has given me more latitude to do things that I enjoy. But yeah, overall, I definitely also agree in that I'm very self-directed, and I do have like very short bursts of like really targeted fascinations, but I do find those to be a lot more fulfilling than maybe doing like a lot of things at once. So I also had that speech and debate phase freshman year. I was super obsessed with, I did parliamentary debate as a freshman, so I was super obsessed with that. I remember spending copious amounts of time preparing every week. And I think that, again, that also commanded a lot of my time and energy freshman year. But I think that honestly, when I stumbled upon Encode Justice and got more involved in the AI ethics space, that was the first time that I ever did anything super consistently and that I ever committed myself to something for like a longer duration of time. So I think that definitely has been fulfilling. But I think that, like Kyler and Aaryan said, definitely what has been most meaningful to me is just, I think carving out my own niches, and I think pursuing things that I find interesting, even outside the scope of school, even outside the scope of what other people have been interested in, or like what the general paradigm is. So yeah, I think over time, when I started working on EJ, I think when I started, finding specific things that I was interested in, I've been super involved in politics. And so that has also been really exciting to get involved in, because campaign work on like a behind the scenes level is super intense, super high intensity. And so that's been fulfilling as well. So I think that, yeah, getting involved in all of those things, I think making time for myself. And of course, I think, like Aaryan said, sometimes skipping school here or there, or I think doing something unconventional, those have been really amazing sources of fulfillment just over the course of my entire high school experience.
I think one thing that I started to kind of identify is that, and this is maybe something unique to my school, but a lot of the coursework that you take in high school is linear. And when I say linear, it focuses on one subject. So for example, AP chemistry, right? The only thing you're learning is chemistry. But when you go to college, it's super interdisciplinary. Like you'll take the most like random stuff, right? Like, I don't know, I was looking at course catalogs the other day and it was like educational neuroscience or like minds and machines, right? Like just like random stuff that like connects like 3 to 6 disciplines at like any moment, right? And because it's so inapplicable to like what you are going to be learning, I feel like doing an external project that, combines and weaves a bunch of disciplines actually is relevant. So I think I feel like there's ins and outs to the argument. I think like it does make a lot of sense. But for example, I've skipped 30% of school across 4 years, which is 216 days. And that does not count half days and stuff like that. So like, it can be quite a bit. So I don't know, just don't let it get too bad. Yeah.
Aryan, any major regrets?
Major regrets.
Or
I don't
maybe
know. I'm
not
like
even
a
so
big
major.
believer. I guess like I'm a big believer in like the butterfly effect. Like one tweak, could change like everything. But like if I did have like a major regret, I think, and this isn't like I love speech and debate, but like waste of time, dude. Like I think when I had a conversation, I think freshman year, with somebody that was going to college. So when I was a freshman, they were a senior, and I asked them like, would you do speech and debate in college? And their answer was no, because I'm tired of talking about issues, not actually doing something about them. And I think that's pretty insightful, right? But I think what we fail to realize is that like there's a lot that we can do in high school that kind of like it makes it negligible, like the impact like that speech and debate has. It's a microcosm, it's elitist, like there's a lot of issues with it. It's structured debate, which never exists anywhere. Like if you debate with somebody, like it's never how public forum works, right? Like that's just not how it is. You don't get 20 minutes to prep or like 2 months before a round. Like there's just so many issues with speech and debate in my eyes. I guess my biggest regret is wasting so much time with that stupid activity. Yeah.
Yeah, Aryan spent like, what was it? How many hours on your debate officer interviews?
Yeah, still like I don't know. This was like 2 weekends ago, but like I spent like 12, like 14 hours at a coffee shop conducting like officer interviews for like next year's team. Like so pointless. Like it's just
Yeah, I guess in that case, like what were the things that did matter? I think all of you guys have done stuff like externally, like outside of school. And we talked about that a bit. But like, I guess what were the things that ended up being those defining moments of high school that may not have, I guess, seemed so grand in the moment, but looking back, it's like those are the things you pick out and you remember.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm sort of having a midlife crisis because you think about what a midlife crisis is. It's realizing that like all this like shit you should have done in your youth, right? Buying the sports car, doing whatever. And now you're 50 and you're like, damn, I did not do any of that while that was still an opportunity. And right now I'm a senior in high school, about to graduate. And I spent so much time. First of all, I can talk about Sparky and how that was all that, because that was definitely meaningful to me. But also there were so many things that I missed out on, like before the expiration date, right? There are certain things you can only do when you're a teenager. You can't really skate around the city and do graffiti art when you're 35 and still feel comfortable doing that when you've got a wife and kids at home. You're doing your taxes. And so there are certain things you can only do right now as a high schooler. And those are the things that I kind of like regret not doing more of. But then I think back about the things that were really meaningful. And a lot of them weren't the productive things that you'd expect. Like not like Spark Teen, not Mission Sis. And obviously these things were still super meaningful, but also these dumb moments like in Atlanta when we jumped into that pool, or when I stayed out late at night with my friends and we climbed a building and saw a really nice view. And that was really meaningful and beautiful. And you're just in that moment. And so there's so many life moments that I can say that I'm proud of, and that I'll be able to recall for the rest of my life, even if they weren't on paper super meaningful or really career oriented, or maybe they just didn't matter at all to anyone else except for myself. But at least I had those moments that I can reflect on and say I lived a full life when I'm 85 in my deathbed.
I guess I have a different take on it. I think the most meaningful moment, I guess it was like for me figuring out what I wanted to do. I always knew that I had like an affinity for like science. So, and pretty much like the brain. So I always knew I was going to go into that domain, but I started like over like summer, actually like right before summer, like right after A/B testing last year. So this was like May. I just started working at a senior care center, and on my like first day, this dude was just dead. Just everything's chaotic, obviously, like, paramedics coming in, medical examiners like asking questions, and caregivers like answering like, oh, this is exactly how it happened, but like nobody has any idea what happened because he was just sitting and then he fell. And this is like as I'm walking in on my first day, so after like 2 weeks of orientation. So I just asked my boss, I'm like, hey, like, what do you want me to do? Like, So then like the first step is like separating all of the other patients, so like they don't see trauma. And then he assigned me to walk around with the guy's wife. Crazy thing is, I actually don't know the guy's name still. But so I'm like walking around with this guy's wife, Elsie, and my task, like he had told me the night before, was to set up Memorial Day weekend decorations. So I started doing that. And like we're putting them up and stuff. And then she's like, there's like a ribbon or something. She's just like, can I take this? And then she goes, yeah, like this would be great when my husband comes back from the war. I was like, it just didn't process for her that just like the dude like just passed away. She didn't even realize like it was gone. She just associated with like the memory of him coming back from like the Korean War decades ago. And I think that was kind of what set me towards patient interaction versus what molecular research was. Because for 3 years, I'd just been doing that stuff. And I'd done it in like various places. I'd loved it. And then suddenly I had this experience. And I was like, wait, like interacting with patients is so cool. Not because you have no idea what's going on, which is what happened to me, but in, like the months following, I just had so many interactions where I was like, there's a lot of ways to make impact in our world. In general, like you can do it through effective altruism or whatever domain you want, right? Like Brian Cameron's way to like raise money for education or whatever, right? But like there's personal values of impact that you have that may be more tangible, intangible. And I realized that the value of impact of just reaching out to people and connecting with them on an individual level is something that I value, which kind of set me towards pre-med, medical school, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
I think that definitely is like my experience as well. I think what I have found most meaningful over time is like the least glamorous aspects of the work that I've been doing. So when I first got involved in political campaigns, my first role, I was working on a campaign and I was assigned to do phone banking. And that, sounds nice in theory, but essentially it's very laborious. I was doing like 6-hour shifts every single day. And it's extremely dull because you are, calling voter after voter after voter. And it's like every 20th voter that actually picks up and they're rude, sometimes they curse at you. And it's very unfulfilling. It was honestly, the first time that I was doing it, I was very disheartened because, campaigns invest a huge sum of dollars in, phone banking and, voter outreach activities like this. And I felt like there was no return on investment there. And I felt like I wasn't actually getting to engage in any of the human connection that I had signed up for. And so I think what I found most fulfilling was those like, that like 1,000th of the calls that I actually was able to have like those meaningful conversations with voters, people who were sometimes on the fence about a candidate or who had, personal experiences with an issue or who had, their own stories of hardship or who had been suffering. And also this was, during the peak of the pandemic. And so I was actually able to connect voters to resources a lot of the times, whether that was, unemployment relief or housing resources or being able to find a local testing center or things like that. So I think that those experiences and those moments definitely do stand out to me because I think that being able to have those conversations and being able to speak to voters oftentimes, I think that reinforced to me the importance of human connection and reminded me why I was doing that work in the first place. And so I think that what has stood out to me most is just being able to find meaning and being able to derive value and being able to have those diamonds in the rough, even when I felt like the work at large was very dull or I wasn't really contributing to anything at large. I think that I think those have really served to remind me of the importance of the work that I do and the work that other people around me are doing. So I think that I will always remember those conversations. I think that being able to work in that very unglamorous voter outreach heavy role, the first time that I first embarked on working on campaigns, I think that really, really, really was an eye-opening experience for me. And I think that, again, has made me even more grateful for that human connection and that opportunity to actually directly engage with and converse with voters and people in these.
Yeah, so I run like an annual newsletter that goes out to a bunch of people, and in it I talked about the ramen shop. And basically, just to explain the ramen shop, I don't know if it's actually going to be a ramen shop, but it's the idea of a ramen shop of having this restaurant where you're serving warm bowls of ramen to people every day and just making their lives better. That sort of idea is my North Star in a way, because it doesn't really matter what I'm building. I just want to build something that has that same effect. So that's sort of the long-term life compass is how do I build ramen shops all around me?
Yeah, there was also another idea worth discussing, which was like the big oil, but not actually big oil. So, Kyler, do you want to talk about that as well?
Yeah, I'm trying to recall. So we have a group chat, the three of us, we call it, the name of the group chat is Big Oil. And I think the origin of that was during the first conversation, we said that we want to have big oil impact. So like be buying off politicians, be like making all this impact on world, except we're not promoting big oil. We're promoting something good for the world. So
It's like big oil without like big oil.
Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think Heather and I were talking about like the merits of working directly in government or directly in policy versus influencing it from the outside. And then we touched upon just how we all have this vision to, have an impact and to be able to influence policymaking. And like Heather said, buy out politicians, get our way, but in a different way.
Yeah, a lot of it is political cynicism because we were, especially me, for a few months, I thought I might work in policy, but then I was entering a phase where I became really politically cynical and basically like, in that state, I was convinced, and I still am somewhat convinced that money speaks, but like the policymakers have absolutely no role in making actual decisions. And so in that case, if you want to be a real policymaker, then you figure out ways to influence government from the outside. Again, like that's a super cynical point, like perspective, but that's the origin of our group chat name, I guess.
I think one thing that I do want to add about high school, and this I guess is tangential. As you can tell, like the three of us have like this like dynamic that's like random as heck. What I do want to get at is like networking is really important in high school. I don't think that I think anywhere you like at least here we talk about the Bay Area bubble a lot, right? Like that you're in this bay, you're in this like toxic, snaky, competitive bubble. True, but I think anywhere you grow up, you're in a bubble, right? You just don't interact with that many people outside your area. And at least for me, seeing like how like undiverse places have been for me, like my school is like 80% Asian, right? Everybody has the same interests, extracurriculars, like we all do the same stuff. So one big thing is like really stepping out of your comfort zone. On that call, like I didn't talk for the first hour because I'm quite introverted. You probably wouldn't be able to tell now because a comfortable group of people, but like when I'm meeting new people, it's pretty hard for me to like actually communicate. So definitely putting yourself out there, just like, just like diffuse the tension, like just throw a sexual joke in there for like no reason, like just like have fun with it, like really try to connect with people outside the confines of like academia and professionalism. And it really, really does lead to like some great friendships. Like Kyler and I, like Monday after Atlanta? No, Sunday. This was Sunday. Yeah. Like we hung out the entire day at the Dogwood Festival, just like eating absolute garbage. Like, yeah, eating absolute, like it was like some of the most like intensely like sugary, oily foods, just like, just having like a good time. And I think like those relationships really do die hard.
Yeah. Also just being proactive about that, just being willing to reach out and take that first step is just such a move. Cause now Ellen and I talk on a bi-weekly basis, or like more like weekly basis at this point. And just knowing that it all began with a single, and also that's how I got in touch with Sneha, who then got in touch with Aaryan, who was already in touch with Aaryan. And so it's all like just being willing to send a message. And there's so many things that can come out of that.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. I think being willing to reach out to people who you find cool or exciting, even if you don't necessarily have a direct connection to them already, is really important and can open a lot of doors. So I think that, like Aaryan said, just like we all live in that bubble. And I feel like if you don't branch out beyond your school environment, you're limiting yourself in so many ways. But I think that some of the most meaningful connections that I've had have stemmed from when I have tried to make an effort to reach out beyond my bubble. And so has been exciting because, like Aaryan said, everyone here has like grown up in such different contexts, has such different stories. I know in Atlanta, we were pretty much staying up every single night, talking through our various stories. We took turns and, asked each other, what's your story? And I know Kyler found that very intimidating. And I think all of us did, but I think it really allowed for us to sort of crack our shells and talk more in depth about, who we are, where we come from, and I think what unites us as well. So I think that being willing to have those conversations, being willing to reach out to people who you find cool, even if that does seem challenging at first, can definitely go a long way. And it can also lead to some very meaningful bonds, which is, how S3 came together in the first place.
Yeah, I think adding on that really quickly, I do agree with Kyler's thing about proactivity, but I think also like maintenance, right? Like a lot of these connections, they can be surface level when you just reach out the first time and they just respond saying like, oh yeah, here's some advice, right? But like having it go back and forth, right, is huge. It really does create like networks and connections. And like Sneha said, like open a lot of doors. Like just reaching out to like people that are, for example, this was before app process, I was like visiting Brown, which is where I ED'd. I would just like message random kids on campus, professors. I messaged all like the deans, like every single dean of admissions, and I set up like 4 meetings with them, right? It's like a life lesson to like actually like really connect with people, right? And sure, like in that context, like it was just like a simple interaction back and forth, right? But like with my admissions officer, I like coincidentally met him on campus, and I like sent him a follow-up email after that saying like, I loved your outfit. Like, can I get like do you have like recommendations on like what stores you got your stuff from? And then he just sent me like a bunch of links, and he was like, oh, I remember you were like around like 5, 7. So here's like some good like, yeah, like, like that's like an intense, like, like relationship that you formed with somebody like you would never communicate with elsewise, right? And I think it's so random, right? Like it really is, but like there's just like, it's much less intimidating when it's a high school student versus an admissions committee, right? And I think learning it early is always beneficial for like October right before admissions, or I guess the medical school admissions process, or like the LSAT, like whatever your future prospects are.
Yeah, I mean, second semester, I've been making it a point to try to schedule a call with someone who I look up to or find interesting or inspiring once a week. So, I mean, almost on a weekly basis, I'm having those calls, and I always find those super exciting because, like Kyler said, I am, at that stage where I'm having a midlife crisis / quarter life crisis because I am 16, to be fair. But I think that having those calls, being able to get clarity, being able to hear from people who you find inspiring, can definitely help you, I think, shape your direction. And so, I think just being willing to reach out, why are you laughing so hard? It's not that funny.
Aren't you 17?
Oh, wait, I am 17. Wait. Oh my God. That's so embarrassing. I am 17. Oh my God. Okay. I still like how you know my age better than I know my age. Okay. So yeah, correction to my previous comment. I am 17 and I'm not 16, but that was really embarrassing. So yeah, I think the moral of the story is just being willing to reach out to people who, you find interesting, whether they're older or younger, or is really fulfilling. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like with what Kyler said, I think most of my friends, or like my closest friends, I've actually met online. Like it feels weird. I've like never met Kyler in real life before. Yes.
Second hot take on
yes,
that.
We need more
time does not define your relationship. I don't think this is a hot take.
Oh,
time does not define a relationship. I think, like, genuinely speaking, I've had like a lot of close friends kind of become distant over the past couple months, right? And I think a lot of it does come down to competitiveness. You kind of realize that when you're in the most stressful situations, people can't be there for you, like things like that, right? Just, general interpersonal conflict, but like time genuinely does not define how close you are with somebody. I think I'm like quite close with Kyler and Sneha. Like, I don't know. It's like, I think we call it the Substack test, right? Like whether
I developed
like we all have, yeah. Sneha said this, and it's like, we all have like Substack newsletters that we send out to people, right? And it's like, if like you kind of determine somebody's closeness, like the litmus test is that like, can you add them onto your Substack and you feel comfortable giving them all of these really personal life updates, right? For me, for example, like gym progress, or like something like poetry, or like something that I write. It's like, would I feel comfortable like somebody at school reading this and like forming opinions about me? And oftentimes that like childhood friends that like I've known for like so long, the answer may be no, right? Just because you just don't feel comfortable with it. And I think that's something that kind of took me a long time to learn over this past year. Love you, Kyler and Sneha.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. There are people who I've met in the last year or 2 years who I feel a lot more like emotionally close to, or that I'm able to have like a lot more meaningful conversations with, than people who I've known my entire life. And so I definitely don't think that time defines a friendship at all.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me. I had a conversation with someone recently about like what defines happiness. What he thinks is genuine happiness is just like human relationship. It's just like having friends and genuine like family, you know, who are there and like trust you and stuff like that. And so he was talking about how like once all of this like settles down and he's gonna literally just go to some remote island and just like have a bunch of friends and just like live the life, you know. So
Yeah, we're going to Idaho. So
Idaho. Why Idaho?
Anna, I mean, Aaryan has his whole reasoning for this.
I think the logic is kind of just like a remote place where you don't have anything but people. Like there's no electronics. I guess that would suck for you, Ellen, because you haven't met a lot of people in person, but you would be invited as well. Just to like meet like a group of people that just like connect, like, how all like the tech CEOs claim to do, that they like go to like this remote area and they're like trapped and then like they just have like insider conversations and like things like they just like make business deals, like not to like plot and like take over the world, but just to like really make impact. And I think like over time it becomes more difficult to like maintain that, which is why that like remote area, whether it's an island or I guess a figurative island in Idaho, it definitely is something where you try to just maintain that like you just create stronger relationships, but at the same time like just build ideas and really build like impact, I suppose.
Okay, this is an interesting question though. If you went off the grid, what would you actually do with your time? Like, as in, if you literally left society, no pressures, no deadlines, no anything, like what would you actually do with all your time?
What would you spend your time doing if nobody needed saving? So essentially trying to get at what do you spend your time doing if you're acting purely selfishly? And so that's a good question, because a lot of times we frame what we spend our time on and who needs helping, right? It's like the whole effective altruism mindset of like, I'm doing this and this, and in the end, it's about maximizing some utility. And even if you're not an effective altruist, you think in like, people generally like to think that they're trying to align what they're doing with some sort of moral conviction. But then I thought about it, and actually like I got responses from Aaryan and Sneha, and I asked like a couple of my other friends too. And they said, like, they generally said something along the lines of learning or like partying in Miami. So just doing whatever, like, like the pure hedonism stuff. And then for me, a lot of it would just be connecting with people, like talking with people, having good conversations, and then also building things that seem interesting. So, one of my friends, he told me that he would want to build some rocket thing, like jetpack for himself. And so just, I don't know, I thought it was a good frame because it makes you think about what you'd be doing purely if you're acting purely selfishly. Because most people aren't going to be like, I just want to collect a massive amount of money, drive my Lamborghini around. Most people have these higher aspirations that they at least like to think that they'd spend their time working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you would just, okay, so you would build things and hang out with friends. That's like your definition of selfish happiness.
Yeah, a lot of community building, like a lot of, and community building, not for the community, but just to like, as something that I enjoy doing, host events, build spaces where people gather. I think just that idea generally appeals to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Aaryan?
I honestly, like when Kyler asked me this, I was mad confused. Like because it's not that like I've always lived my life for someone else or something, but like it really felt like after he asked me that and I couldn't think of an answer, like, oh, maybe I have lived my life for like somebody else the entire time. I don't really know. Like it was a pretty hard like question to like answer. I think my initial answer was like start a weed farm, but I realized like that was just like it was just I just said it like it didn't matter. Like I don't even care like about that stuff anyway. So I don't know. I think it would probably just like, this is a weird take, but I don't think we've seen the true genetic potential of what our bodies can do, and just see how much you can push like the human body to like lift. You know, like I would just use myself as like a guinea pig, and I would just like start like benching, deadlifting, squatting, and just seeing like basically I just run science experiments on myself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some Doofenshmirtz.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I do agree with you though. I feel like I actually read a book recently about how like we're always at 40, like when our mind tells us to stop, it's actually 40% of our actual physical abilities. Like we have all these defense mechanisms, you know? Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Like we like we actually like hypothetically like this, like I think it's called runner's high, right? When you run a certain amount of miles and then after a while you just stop feeling it, that like the pain. And like I remember like I think it was last week, I just decided to get up, like I haven't run in a while, and I just ran 13 miles. I was just like, let's just see what like I said, like what my body can do. And after the 6 mile I just didn't feel anything. So I feel like if we tried enough, I feel like our body, like I just want to like kill all the pain receptors, you know, like yeah, it sounds really stupid, but like just like being able to just like basically break down every single defense mechanism and unleash genetic potential.
I like that. Yeah, what about Sneha?
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly not sure. I think I had like a very similar experience to Aaryan in that it was my first time thinking about what I would do if I were to act purely selfishly. So I think that I would definitely want to, you know, talk to people like Kyler said, but I think would be making music, writing, just solely for myself. I think I do get a lot of joy from that. So I think that's what I would be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta think about this in a bit too, but I think my answer would be very similar to yours, Sneha. I think I'd just read and write a lot and then build random things. Like okay, actually I should have talked about this when you asked about the highlight of my high school, like so far. But like building the geodesic dome, I can't see it right now because it's dark, but there's like a geodesic dome in my backyard. It's like, if it wasn't dark, it'd be like right outside my window. But like genuinely building that was so much fun. And it's not like I even learned much from it, although that was the initial intent, or like, I don't even use the dome as much as I would like to, but just trying to build random things and just seeing it come to life is just fun, and not for any particular reason too. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Delta X Podcast with Ellen Shu. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.